Caitlyn Clark didn't even suit up for the WNBA All-Star Game, and somehow ESPN still managed to make it all about her. Or more accurately, all about pretending she doesn't exist. The headline looked innocent enough. Second most watched All-Star Game ever. But for anyone with 2 working eyeballs and a calculator, the math wasn't mathing. They compared the 2025 ratings to 2023, not 2024, the year Caitlyn actually played.
ESPN didn't want to show the ratings were down from WNBA All-Star Game because Caitlyn Clark didn't play, so they just used the 2023 numbers instead. People noticed these things, man. The numbers was up last year in 2024, 1 because of Caitlyn Clark, 2 because of all the Caitlyn Clark Olympic drama that was going on. People were upset about the fact that Caitlyn Clark was not in the Olympics, myself included. Caitlyn Clark should have been on that Olympic team.
ESPN basically said, "Look, we're up 158% from 2 years ago." Meanwhile, anyone with a memory longer than a TikTok loop was screaming, "Hello? Caitlyn Clark's rookie All-Star Game pulled 3.4 million viewers. This one barely cracked 2.2 inches. Here's where it gets weird." The same ESPN article literally compared the 3-point contest ratings to 2024, just a few sentences earlier. So when it made Caitlyn look good, they used 2024. When it didn't, they time-traveled back to 2023 like Marty McFly in a panic. This wasn't just a coincidence. This was a full-court spin job. And the wildest part? ESPN thought no one would notice.
Dear WNBA, everything does not need to be a record or historic or all of this stuff. But like, it is another situation than pretending like Caitlyn Clark doesn't exist. People out here saying that people wouldn't watch without Caitlyn. It's literally down 40% without Caitlyn. There are more viewers for an average Caitlyn Clark game than for the All-Star Game. Second most viewed All-Star Game. Oh, it's up 158%. Oh, on 2023.
Like fans who've been showing up in droves to watch Fever games weren't going to pause for a second and go, "Wait, didn't we just see 1.2 million more people watching last year?" This wasn't just lazy reporting, it was damage control in high heels. Because the second Caitlyn was ruled out of the All-Star Game, ticket prices nosedived 48%. Let that sink in. In a league begging for higher pay and more eyeballs, the second one rookie sat out, fans treated the game like a clearance sale at Marshall's. And this isn't the NFL where you lose Joe Burrow for a season and the Bengals still sell out. This is the WNBA, where missing Caitlyn Clark feels like the entire arena just got unplugged.
ESPN was comparing this year's All-Star Game to 2023. Why? Why in the hell would they do that? This is another example of ESPN polishing the turd with this dump of a league. Without Caitlyn Clark, 2.2 million is a good number for the WNBA All-Star Game. Yes, it's a massive decline without Caitlyn Clark, but that does not mean the ratings are bad. So I'm struggling to understand why ESPN felt the need to polish the turd.
But don't worry, ESPN was ready with a magic trick. Poof! Shift the comparison to a year where she didn't exist. Problem solved. Except it wasn't. Because when you hide something that obvious, it only makes people look harder. Now let's zoom out for a second. Because this ESPN slip-up, not the first time they've tried to play the numbers like a Vegas blackjack dealer who's also the house. Let's go back to the 2025 WNBA Draft. ESPN proudly boasted, "Viewership is up 119%. Sounds amazing, right? Except they compared it to 2023, not 2024. You know, the draft where Caitlyn Clark actually got picked and 2.45 million people tuned in. If they had compared to that, the headline would have been, "Draft viewership plummets 49%. Doesn't sound so inspiring now, does it?
I mean, the thing is, this could be disingenuous too. That's the bad side of it, because for some reason they have a thing where they want to compare everything without Caitlyn. They're like, oh, well, she's an anomaly, so we could compare these numbers to 2023 and show you that without Caitlyn, it's growing.
And this isn't just cherry picking. This is full-on fruit salad. Same story during March Madness 2025. ESPN was more selective with their comparisons than a teenager choosing Instagram filters. They'd reference 2023 when Caitlyn hadn't broken records yet, but the second they got to the Final Four and title game, poof, no comparisons at all. Just third highest ever. Cool stat, until you realize the top 2 spots were Caitlyn Clark in 2023 and 2024. Translation, viewership tanked, but let's just not mention that. It's like saying, this is the second best-selling iPhone launch. If you ignore the iPhone 14 and 15, everyone knows what's missing, and you'd think at some point ESPN would just admit it. Caitlyn Clark moves numbers like nobody else. But no, they'd rather risk looking like your uncle trying to cover a bald spot with a comb-over. But the real kicker? They assume fans won't catch it, that if they just throw enough percentages and comparisons at random years, people will buy it. But Clark's fan base? They're not casual. These are fans who track attendance charts like it's fantasy football. They'll fact-check in the comment section before your press release even finishes loading. And what ESPN doesn't realize is, every time they try to quietly shrink Caitlyn's role, they accidentally enlarge it. This is textbook Streisand effect. You try to hide something, you just end up putting it on a billboard. Kind of ironic for a network that's supposedly all about highlights.
If Caitlyn Clark plays in the All-Star Game, it will set records. But now, because of her popularity, even if she doesn't, it will break records and be the second highest ever, only beaten by the time she played in it. And that matters. And this is what Tiger Woods did to the PGA Tour. Yes, Tiger made the most money, but he raised the purses in all tournaments and made a lot of people rich. So this All-Star rating is proving, despite losing 1 million viewers from last year, is that she has risen the entire league.
And it's not just numbers. This weird allergic reaction to Caitlyn Clark extends to everything, even awards. When Caitlyn was named Time Magazine's Athlete of the Year, some folks in the WNBA circles actually said it should have gone to all the players, like it was a preschool art contest. Everybody gets a ribbon.
Last night, we read Time Magazine, where Caitlyn Clark was named Athlete of the Year. Why couldn't they have put the whole WNBA on that cover and said, the WNBA is the league of the year because of all the talent that we have?
Let's take a second right now to have a moment of silence for Washington Mystics owner Shelly Johnson, who suggested that the WNBA as a whole should have been on the cover of Time Magazine instead of just Caitlyn Clark, who graced the cover last week, which is probably some of the stupidest shit I've ever heard. And that's no disrespect to the ladies in the league.
Now imagine this. LeBron James wins MVP and someone goes, actually, the entire Lakers roster should be holding that trophy too. You'd get laughed out of Staples Center. But for Caitlyn, apparently participation trophies are in style. Even her coach couldn't shout her out for winning an ESPY without immediately saying, oh, but Asia Wilson and Stewie and Sue Bird are also amazing.
Mr. heard about it, but during the game, Caitlyn got honored as the WNBA Player of the Year in the ESPYs. Just what does it mean to have her impact so far? I mean, there are a lot of really good players in this league, and she got honored as the best player in the league by the ESPYs.
Yeah, I mean, obviously she continues to get new awards. She continues to break barriers. She continues to do things that we haven't seen before. I mean, you know, obviously you think about the Stewie's MVPs of the league, and you know, championship winners, and Asia's MVPs of the league and championship winners, and of course Sue Bird, who was sitting, you know, in the building today. And you know, Caitlyn is so fortunate, as well as all these guys, really. I mean, that they don't know anything any different than the WNBA.
Cool. But the award wasn't for who has most friends in the league. It was for her. Now here's where things start getting straight up ridiculous. The same players who benefit the most from Caitlyn Clark's rise are now the ones throwing shade while demanding bigger paychecks. Yeah, you can't make this stuff up. Right before the All-Star Game, players showed up to warm-ups wearing shirts that said, "Pay us what you owe us." A dramatic message, sure, but here's the part they didn't think through. The second Caitlyn was ruled out, ticket prices tanked 48%. That's not a message. That's a warning sign with flashing red lights and sirens. And instead of acknowledging the elephant in the arena, that Caitlyn Clark equals revenue, they doubled down with pettiness. Cue Kelsey Plum, who couldn't help herself in the post-game press conference. She made a not-so-subtle dig at Team Clark, saying none of them showed up for the protest t-shirt meeting.
We didn't, at least as players, we didn't know that was going to happen. So I think it was kind of like a genuine surprise, but the t-shirt, just united front was determined this morning, that we had a meeting for. And, you know, not to tattletale, but 0 members of Team Clark were very present for that. But no, we were just, we had a very, that really needed to be mentioned.
Because apparently, if you don't coordinate your shirt with the group, you're not a real teammate now. It's giving middle school lunch table politics. And she said this in Indianapolis, Caitlyn's home turf, after an All-Star game where Clark's absence created a noticeable hole in energy, excitement, and yes, revenue. That's like asking for a raise while flipping off your boss in his own office. Even Sabrina Ionescu's face during Plum's comment was like, did she really just say that out loud? It was a split-second reaction, but fans noticed, and so did NBA vet Stacey King, who jumped in with a reality check.
Plum took a shot at Caitlyn Clark during that whole thing about Team Clark wasn't very present for that. Stacey King played for the Bulls. He was somewhat of an enforcer himself. Stacey King plays for the Bulls. There he is. All right. We all remember how Rodman was. Stacey King wasn't no punk back in the day. Well, he is now coming out making some comments about these players, Kelsey Plum, and this whole situation. All took to court wearing shirts bearing the message, "Pay us what you owe us." However, the former NBA champion and now broadcaster Stacey King, the shade that the guard Kelsey Plum threw during the post-game press conference indicates the pettiness that may come back to haunt the CBA negotiations.
He basically said, you want higher salaries, but you're taking shots at the one person helping make that happen? Make it make sense. And here's the wildest part. This All-Star Game was supposed to show that the league could hold its own without Caitlyn Clark, that it didn't need her to dominate headlines or ratings. Instead, it showed the opposite. The gameplay was forgettable. The crowd energy was flat. It had the same vibe as a celebrity softball game. People were there, but nobody remembered why. And while players were rallying behind slogans, the league was quietly praying the ratings wouldn't collapse entirely.
We hope it gets a little bit more competitive because like a girls trip to Cancun right now, there's no D.
And I felt like the players were so excited and happy to be there. They just didn't put that much effort on the court. And I also have to admit that I left during the third quarter. I just kind of couldn't take it anymore. Nafisa Collier's team was winning by over 20 points at halftime. Let's see if they come out a little bit stronger in the third quarter and start to play a little bit more defense. But the lead just got further and further away.
In fact, if we're being brutally honest, the "Pay Us What You Owe Us" shirts would have landed better if the game wasn't, as one fan said, the worst All-Star game in professional sports history. When you follow that message with low-effort defense, missed layups, and post-game drama, it doesn't exactly scream, "raise our salaries." But just when you thought it couldn't get more awkward, ESPN swoops in like a PR intern with a Band-Aid, declaring the game a historic success. Just don't mention it had 1.2 million fewer viewers than last year, or that it dropped 36%. That would ruin the vibes. Let's talk about what everyone's too scared to admit. Caitlyn Clark isn't just part of the WNBA's growth. She is the growth. Every empty seat, every ratings dip, every price crash when she's not around, that's not coincidence. That's cause and effect. And the owners? Oh, they know. They're not sitting in boardrooms with glittery optimism and protest slogans. They're looking at spreadsheets. And those spreadsheets are screaming one thing: protect the asset. This season alone, Caitlyn's games versus the Sky, the Liberty, and the Sun were some of the highest viewed WNBA broadcasts in decades. We're talking 2.7 million, 2.2 million, and 1.7 million viewers. That's not normal for this league. That's NBA Finals energy showing up for regular season WNBA matchups. So when ESPN tries to call a 2.2 million viewership number historic for the All-Star Game, without acknowledging that Clark's rookie year brought in 3.4 million, it's not just shady, it's insulting. They're gaslighting the entire fan base like we're not looking at the scoreboard. And here's what's even crazier. Caitlyn didn't even play this year. She was on the bench. That's it. And it still became the second highest rated All-Star game ever. You know what that means? Her impact is so massive, she doesn't even need to touch the court anymore. She can just wave at the camera and the ratings jump. That's not hype. That's market power. So why pretend? Why bury it in spin? Why act like the Caitlyn Clark effect is some embarrassing secret when it's the very reason team valuations are doubling and media contracts are being renegotiated? Because acknowledging her power means admitting the league is more fragile than anyone wants to say out loud. But if the WNBA truly wants to rise, this weird passive-aggressive campaign needs to stop. The players, the league, and the media need to stop pretending Clark is the problem and start recognizing she's the platform. She's the reason those pay us shirts even make sense. Because without her, there's no us. There's just empty arenas, sad ratings, and a whole lot of excuses. So here's the reality check. Caitlyn Clark is the only reason fans are tuning in, buying merch, and filling seats. You don't have to worship her, but if you're smart, you at least say thank you. And if you made it this far into the video and you're enjoying this content, laughing at the madness or nodding your head along, hit that subscribe button and support the channel. More real talk, more receipts, and way fewer spin jobs.